I'm Anagha, I'm Nidhi, and today we'll be presenting our topic on Back to the Basics, learning how to preserve our environment from ancient Vedic literature. So here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering in today's presentation, and we're going to go ahead and get started right away. This is our introduction. In Hinduism, the environment is considered to be inherently spiritual and necessary to understand. Examples of this would be natural elements being personified. For example, the earth was personified as Devi. Other concepts that were described in Hindu scriptures would be weather cycles, ahimsa, and yagnas. So to start off, we're going to go over a couple of shlokas that are present in the scriptures. This first one is from the Suktam, and it reads, Indra Patni Vyapani Surasa Dhiriha Vayumati Jalashayani Shriyam Dharaja Satyando Parimedini Shoparidattam Parivara. So this shloka basically explains how Devi, who is Indra's wife, contains a lot of the divinity that we should respect and that's present in the environment because it's necessary for our survival, for example, the winds and the waters. Similarly, in this shloka in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna explains to Arjuna that Sri Krishna, as the omnipresent universal being, as well as Prakriti, come together for the aspect of creation, and they create both sentient and insentient beings, and these creations are what contribute to the cycle of samsara. And essentially, the reason that we bring this up is because it's present in a lot of our scriptures that the existence of Atma is present in all living things, including the environment. So because everything contains this life force that inherently stems from Parabrahma, it's essential for us to respect it as we would with other individuals or God. And various scriptures talk about this, like the previous ones, the previous two shlokas, the Suktam and the Bhagavad Gita talk about it, as well as some of the Vedas as well. The weather cycles is also a concept that was previously introduced. The Vedas describe the specifics of what today we call the weather cycles. This would be things like the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and the phosphorus cycle. The Vedas also talk about how human activity has an effect on the environment, and balancing how much activity we have and the effect it takes on the environment is significant to being able to produce, or not produce, but like maintain a healthy environment. And while interacting with the environment, we must be careful, and we must not interact with it so much that it deteriorates the environment. It also describes pollution with reference to the consequences of it, such as like deviation from natural cycles. This would mean in protecting plant life. Pollution was considered to be poisoning the environment. While it was not a widely known concept at first, it was later understood to be pollution. Protection of trees are also essential towards survival. The Vedas ban acts such as deforestation and instead promote acts such as planting and purifying the environment. It also mentions how trees can help reduce the amount of poison that's in the air. And today these poisons are known as greenhouse gases, so carbon dioxide and water vapor. The energy imbalance within the ecosystem can also create difficult circumstances for living. This is linked to climate change. The Vedas also describe the adverse effects such as, or specific symptoms, more like heavy raining, warmer winters, and colder summers. The environment gives life to living beings, so it is important to respect it and value it for our own survival. So we're also going to be talking about yagnas, and yagnas basically are described in this verse from the Manusmriti, and basically they outline like what actually happens when you offer something to the fire, right? So this verse says that when something is offered to the fire, it goes to the sun, and from the sun it proceeds to rain, and from the rain you get food, and from the food you get creatures or living things. And the reason we wanted to bring up this is because when you go into like a deeper look into why these specific processes are outlined within the Vedas and the scriptures, it's evident that there's like a scientific purpose behind it, because there's very specific substances that are offered during the yagna, which include various woods like mango wood, odoriferous substances like saffron, health constituents like ghee, sweets like sugar, and medicinal herbs. And a lot of scientific studies kind of have been looking into these fumes that are present when something is burned in the fire of the yagna. And the two studies that we looked at in our research showed that when certain yagnas were performed, the surrounding atmosphere and the surrounding water bodies showed decreased levels of pollutants. And this kind of just goes on to show that yagnas were specifically designed not only for religious, but also for scientific purposes and in relationship to like how it affects the environment. And that's why we think it's important, maybe like not to have yagnas like all the time, like as like an everyday thing, but it is a way that we can use to battle a lot of the environmental pressures that humans put on the environment.
Another important concept would be nonviolence towards animals. Ahimsa is the concept that importance and value must be placed on all of life, and therefore no ill will should be wished towards other living beings. While the Vedas discourage harming life altogether, it especially warns against animals. This is because animals have consciousness, whereas plants do not have thought processes or feelings. Animals do have those things. Animals are able to provide for itself and its offspring. Animals can also feel pain. A verse from the Atharva Veda also confirms this. It speaks on how no father or mother should be harmed, and animals are, can be those things. The system of reincarnation is another reason. A soul of an animal that could be killed could also be the soul of a friend or a family member from another life. And so therefore we should not want to harm a friend or a family member's soul, and it's wrong to harm that. The energy imbalance, again, is also another factor that contributes towards this as well. All life energy comes from the sun and weaves its way through production to its utilization. This directly correlates to food chains. Food chains are an important part of every ecosystem. They're composed of multiple levels, from the producer level all the way to the tertiary consumer level. And if one class gets removed or the population of it decreases, this causes a chain reaction throughout the entire food chain. This means that should the population of, let's say, a primary consumer decreases or vanishes, the population of producers will increase, whereas the populations of the secondary consumers and tertiary consumers would decrease. This is because the producers don't have anyone to eat the producers, and the secondary consumers and tertiary consumers fall because there's no primary consumers, there's no one for the secondary consumers to eat, and because the secondary consumer population falls, there's no one for the tertiary consumers to eat either. A verse for this would be Yasmin Sarvani Bhuta Nyatmaiva Vijanataha Tatra Ko Mohaka Shoka Ekatva Manapasyataha. This is also relevant to modern society. A concept that describes this would be carrying capacity. Carrying capacity can be defined as the limit to how much an ecosystem can withstand. For example, there can only be so many cows in a field because if there are too many being eaten, then the grass cannot be replenished in time for all of the cows to eat. Therefore, the carrying capacity can be the amount of cows that can eat in a field without there being a restriction on how much food is available. The Vedas also describe the importance of never taking more than what's needed. Value is to be placed on everything taken from the earth, and its stock must be replenished. The Vedas included implied verses on current issues such as global warming and how deforestation contributes towards this issue. This includes basic knowledge of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the processes that plants use to take energy from the sun as well as carbon dioxide and provide oxygen in return. This process kind of offsets the production of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. The Plant a Billion Trees project helps to decrease the adverse effects of global warming using plants' ability to use photosynthesis. Because their resources are limited, planting more trees to counter the diminishing supply can help balance the environment, which is replenishing the earth. There are also other ways that we can help ourselves. So simple adjustments to everyday routines can help the environment as well. Vedic ideas often refer to the environment in a way that may not provide any solutions that are practical to the modern world. So therefore we can kind of implement these ideas into today's society. Using green energy sources is one option. So we can always use solar panels or wind turbines instead of fossil fuels. Others can be switching off the Wi-Fi once everyone is done using it or when leaving the house. Others can be simple things like using glass bottles and reusable bags rather than plastic. Glass containers for specific items can also help reduce how much is bought and therefore reduce production as well, because there's not much bought in excess instead. Washing clothes in cold water and hang drying them are also options available. Additionally, alternative diets may also assist in preserving the environment. The Vedas state multiple times that consumptions of animals unethical, while sudden shifts in diet are not ideal. Eating less meat can cause an impact on global gas emissions. The agriculture industry makes about 14 to 50% of global gas emissions. Western countries actually make up the majority of it. Simply eating less meat on a larger scale can reduce production and reduce global gas emissions that way as well. Many countries also have alternatives in their diets for many meat dishes, such as tofu or beans. South Asian meals especially do this. Meat-eating families in the past have tried diets that include eating meat on certain days of the week and avoiding it on others. While it's not probable for everyone to stop eating meat altogether, simply eating a substitute every once in a while can help with the solution.
So just a quick conclusion to reiterate, like the main points that we wanted to really say is that the preservation of the environment is an ideal that's upheld throughout a lot of Hindu scriptures, and the main point is to live in harmony with the environment. Plant and animal life are sacred, and ahimsa is a very important tenet. Yagnas and similar rituals could also be implemented to some extent in daily lives, in terms of just like burning certain specific substances to achieve desired results or something of that sort, as well as some of the previous examples that we stated in the past few slides. But our main point in this paper was that there's a lot that we can learn from our roots and from ancient Vedic literature about how to protect and preserve the environment, because ultimately we're the ones living on it and we shape it not only for ourselves but also for future generations. So thank you.
Thank you.